to wrap up this first segment. Now let's get into this second segment right here. Let's talk about the NFL draft. One of the biggest things in the offseason. It's my favorite part of the offseason. It's probably my favorite part of the football season outside of contention. So, late regular season games, playoffs, Super Bowl. Other than that, it's the draft for me because we get to figure out what is the future looking like. And one of the biggest things with that is mock drafts. And I think we're going to be looking at 2 mock drafts from 2 guys that, are notorious in the mock draft field, 2 guys that do a show together every single year. I'm not sure if they're bringing it back this year, but I think it's called Move the Sticks, but it's Daniell Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks. They always talk to each other. Those guys are good friends. Daniell Jeremiah just released his most recent mock draft, and we will most definitely be talking about that, but we'll also be bringing up Bucky Brooks's because there are some interesting things to talk about within them, not just the picks that they made. So let's talk about Daniell Jeremiah's first, and I'm going to go through it right now for all of you, and I apologize to you guys watching on YouTube. You're going to see me on my phone because I'm looking at it. But at 14, the Baltimore Ravens select Derek Stingley Jr., cornerback out of LSU, and reading a quick description because Daniell Jeremiah, if you guys don't know, comes from the Baltimore Ravens organization. So he does typically have a really good insight into what the Ravens like to do. He says the Ravens need to address the offensive line, but they usually stick to a best player available philosophy. Stingley is coming off of a foot injury, but he's immensely talented and plays a premier position. I think that's a great analysis right there. He's recognizing the Ravens needed offensive linemen. However, he's also recognizing their philosophy, and he goes with Stingley. Some other players that were available that he had, falling past them, David Ojabo. He also had Charles Cross. Those are probably the biggest names, and also Tyler Linderbaum. Those are the biggest names that I see that the Ravens passed on, that I see also mocked to them and by other people. But, what do you think about the Ravens going with Stingley at 14 if he's available, Joshua?
I mean, the crazy thing about it, was it last Wednesday or Monday? We just talked about it. Possibly Carolina pairs J.C. Horn with Sauce Gardner. I mean, I wouldn't be against it because there's still going to be other guys available. If you go ahead and get a Sauce Gardner at 6, just think about all the possibilities that's still going to be at 4th, or at 14, or us even trading up. So getting a Derek Stingley Jr., I don't see that as a second option. I still see that as top tier, immediate impact. We can get him on the field. He can be our number 1 corner. And people may say, "Oh, why would you put a rookie at number 1 corner?" Did y'all not see Patrick Surtain, the third, out at Denver? He was the number 1 corner, and he was having pick sixes immediately. Jalen Ramsey, immediate impact. When he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Zay Howard, Miami with the Miami Dolphins. So, we need someone like that in our facility because where have we really been getting beat is in the secondary. We have talked about it many a times. All the teams that we're playing, even in the AFC North, they are not going as run heavy as they used to. It's not smash mouth football as it used to be. It is more of, hey, I got a quarterback that can throw it 80 yards deep, and I got a wide receiver that can run a 4-3, and maybe his game speed is even faster than that. So, and then just about every year we're playing against Kansas City because that's the rivalry. Baltimore and Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. We finally got the win over Kansas City, so we may not see that until playoffs. Hopefully. So, I definitely love the Derek Stingley Jr. move. If we were to draft him, you put Marcus Peters at the number 2 wide receiver, and you let Marlon Humphrey, work on the nickel, work out of the nickel. And the great thing about it is you still can go young in your secondary. Around the 4th round, you can go for a Nick Cross. So I actually like the move. People, people are so torn. They say, "Oh, we should go for edge. We should go for old lineman." Hey, right now in today's league, yes, they still got pads on, but it's 7-on-7 with pads, respectfully. So with it being 7-on-7 with pads on, I'm gonna go ahead and add to my secondary because we haven't been getting on. We haven't had a playmaker since the year of fruit punch. Earl Thomas. It was looking rough last year. It was looking rough. So we need to try to give Marcus. We need to try to give Marlon a breather. We need to give Marcus Peters a breather because we know how he plays. So Derek Stingley Jr. at 14, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love Derek Stingley Jr. He's my number 5 graded player in this upcoming draft class. Is in just pure talent. I don't think he could be a top 5 pick. I honestly do believe that. But my number 1 player is Kayvon Thibodeau. I've said that plenty of times, and I think that it's really interesting because Daniell Jeremiah. I talked about how it's not just about the player that he has as picking; it's all about the other things going on in his mock draft. Mm-hmm. He has Thibodeau going number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons, and he writes, Thibodeau is a true wild card in this draft. I could see him going anywhere from number 2 overall to outside the top 10. Atlanta has a huge need at pass rush help. Trading up for Thibodeau, if he falls into that 7, 8, 9, 10 range, do you think that that is something that the Baltimore Ravens not only should do, because I say absolutely 1,000% they should do it. If they have the possibility to trade for Thibodeau and you get to keep Lamar Jackson and you get to keep, a Rashad Bateman and stuff like that, I say you 1,000,000% do it. But could the Ravens potentially do it if he falls to an 8, 9, or 10 or something like that, where you're making a trade with the Broncos or the Jets or even the Washington Commanders? What do you think about the potential of the Ravens trading up for Thibodeau if he is to fall, like Daniell Jeremiah says he potentially could?
Just seeing how Eric DeCosta was so aggressive last year, to get himself back into the first round and in a draft Adolfo Way, I could see him maybe being aggressive again this year. Yes, we love our picks. It's a beautiful thing for us to have 10 picks. McConnell and myself, we talk about it, off the air that, this year's draft, in my opinion, is very crucial to this Ravens organization if you want to still be considered as Super Bowl contenders and get over that hump and make it to the Super Bowl. So, if you can get a pass rusher like Thibodeau and also get another corner in the first round, by all means, let's get back to the way of Ravens way of I will live with a mediocre offense, but give me a stellar defense that's going to lead me to the Super Bowl. Because at the end of the day, look what the Bengals did. Yes, they have Joe Burrow. They have Jamar Chase. They have Mixon. They had a struggling offensive line. But who got them to the Super Bowl? That defense that played together. Wasn't no big name guys, but those guys played their tails off, and they knew their assignment. Logan Wilson, maybe I wouldn't say the best, but he is making a name as a top coverage linebacker. Their nickel cornerback. I forgot his name, but he's pretty good. Jesse Bates and Bell, that safety tandem is going to, if the Bengals go ahead and resign those guys, that's going to be a tandem they'll watch out for years. Because what did they do to the Kansas City game? Patrick Mahomes, instead of just dumping it off, he tried to go to deep to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's 5'11". He's not a 6-footer. He's not 6'3". He's not 6'4". What did Jesse Bates do? Punch the ball out before he caught it. Bell was right there to catch it. Sealed the game.
Exactly. Got to build up that defense. I think that's one of the biggest things. That's Ravens football right there. So I'm fully on board in terms of trading up for Thibodeau if he's available. And now let's move into Bucky Brooks's mock draft. This one's much less recent. This came out very late January, but I still think it's still worthwhile to talk about because Bucky Brooks and Daniell Jeremiah are still linked together. They talk to each other all the time. He has the Baltimore Ravens drafting Tyler Linderbaum at 14, which, we can talk about that really quickly. But the most interesting part that I see is he has Kyle Hamilton at 15, the safety out of Notre Dame, and then Trevor Penning, the offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, at 17. And those are the biggest names that I see that the Ravens are potentially linked to, potentially going. But let's talk about that right there. The Ravens, could they won? I think that we've talked about it plenty of times. Them going center in the first round, it's a possibility. But Kyle Hamilton, if he's on the board, is he an automatic pick? He's my number 2 player in this draft class. Is he an automatic pick no matter who else is there, Joshua, at 14?
Hey, I'm going to keep on saying, in order for us to get to a Super Bowl, we had to have a stellar impact player style of defense. So if Kyle Hamilton is there at 14, I'm going for him. You know, people say we need a center. I think we all forgot we have the Swiss Army knife that we signed for 3 years in the Patrick McCarry. Yes, Patrick McCarry did start messing up, you know, with the snaps because he was trying to still snap the ball with a hurt thumb. But outside of that, he was doing a good job. So, you know, maybe you move him back to center if we don't sign a Bradley Bozeman, if we don't sign a Ryan Jensen, you know, but if a Kyle Hamilton's there at 14, come on now. That's a generational player in my opinion. You gotta go for that type of guy. You gotta add some more help to that secondary, and then getting a guy like that on a rookie contract. I'm taking it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. That's nothing against Alex Linderbaum, but we looked at the history of centers getting drafted. Very, very rarely do centers ever get drafted top 15. Very rarely. Now, it's a possibility for the Baltimore Ravens to trade back and draft Alex Linderbaum. I'm not saying he shouldn't go 14. I have him ranked as my number 3 player in this draft class, regardless of position. I have him as my number 1 offensive lineman. However, Evan Neal, offensive tackle, much more valuable in the NFL. So he's obviously going to be drafted much higher. But overall, I'm not against Linderbaum. It's just traditionally the center position does not go that early. So I think if the Ravens do end up drafting him, I think it'll be in a trade back scenario, you know, where they draft him at 18, at 19, at 20, 22, something like that, where I don't want to say Hayden Hurst it, but you remember when they were like, were picking at like 14 or whatever, they traded back to 16, then 18, then they drafted Hurst, and then they traded back up to get Lamar Jackson, and they kept trading back. I think that's something they could do with Linderbaum, where they like just slowly keep trading back, and then they're like, all right, now we'll draft him. That's a potential if they draft him, in my opinion. But, you know, overall, I felt like those were interesting mocks. Guys, let us know what you guys think about those mock drafts. Would you like those picks and stuff like that? Who are guys that you guys are looking out for? All those types of things. But let's move into the next segment.